Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for attending our August Shotsuki Hoyo here in Salinas. And for those who are tuning in, I thank you for joining us as well. This month of August is still part of Obon season. And so we still remember those who passed away just over a year ago from last Obon. But also August is an important memorial for the people of the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki who are this year observing 75 years since the tragic atomic bomb droppings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And so we remember them as well today. And as we remember them, I hope that we will all remember that we cannot forget the horrors and the tragedy that war creates, and that we each, in our homes and in our communities, work towards creating peaceful homes, peaceful communities, and a peaceful nation where wars do not occur any longer. Also today, we're observing the memorial for Rennyo Shonin. And as many of you know, Rennyo Shonin is the 8th descendant of our founder, Shonin. And Rennyo is best known for his letters called the Gobunsho. And many of you are familiar with some of his letters, including the White Ashes, and that is met at our funeral services. So today we're observing Rennyo Shonin's memorial as well. I'd like to begin with an opening reading. I'll ask our minister's assistant, Mr. Bill Wittenberg, to come forward and share with us an opening reading.
Please join me in Gassho. Once and true and trusting is settled, we realize that our birth is due to the working of Amida and not by our own calculations. Even though we may do evil, even more should we about the power of the vow. Then tenderness and forbearance will appear by virtue of and made to become so by itself. Shinran Shonin. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Thank you very much, Bill. And now I'd like to invite you to join us in the sutra chanting. We'll begin with the Sambujo, which you can find on the large purple service book on page 23. And this will be followed by a dedication reading. And then the Sambutsuge on page 77, and followed by the Jusege on page 91. And during the Sambutsuge and the Jusege, the names of families who are observing a memorial in the month of August will be scrolled. And as you see your family name, I encourage you to come forward to your butsudans at home and burn incense in memory of your loved ones. And also towards the end, if you are observing a memorial in the month of August and your names are not showing on the list, but you'd like to Oshoko, please do so as well. And so we'll begin with the Sambujo, followed by the dedication reading, Sambutsuge, and the Jusege. Namandalas, 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 namandalas. services. The Sangha has reverently come before Amida Buddha in memory of their family members. Today we also remember the thousands killed in the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki 75 years ago. We also observe today Rennyo Shonin's memorial service. With deepest thankfulness and gratitude for the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha, we reaffirm the three homages. I go to the Buddha for guidance, I go to the Dharma for guidance, I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namo Kia Boots, Namo Kia Ho, Namo Kia Soul. Now I'd like to ask you all to please join me in the Gatha, Shinshu Shuka, and let's see, I'm sorry, which number? On the large purple service book, you can find the Shinshu Shuka on page 216. Now I'd like to invite our minister's assistant, Mr. Nick San Juan, to share with us the threefold refuge on page 10.
The threefold refuge. Difficult is to receive a human form, now we are limited. Difficult is to hear the Dharma of the Buddha, now we hear it. We do not cross over to the truth in the present life, and what life shall we cross over? Let us with sincerity and true reverence take refuge in the three treasures of truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we, together with all sentient beings, enter the great way of enlightenment and to the unsurpassed intent of Amida Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we, together with all sentient beings, enter the storehouse of the Dharma, becoming like the wisdom ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we, together with all sentient beings, become units in true accord, in harmony with all things. The peerless, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rare to encounter, even in many hundreds and thousands of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Sanghyamu, Ninjin Pegatashi, Ima Sudeni Yuku, Bukpo Kikigatashi, Ima Sudeni Kiku, Konomi Konjo ni Mukate ka Dosen wa Sarani Izure no Shoni Mukate ka Konomi wo Dosen. Daishu Mono Tomo ni Shishin ni Sambo ni Kieshi Tate Matsuru Beshi. Mizukara Butsu ni Kieshi Tate Matsuru. まさに願わくは主情と共に大道を体現して無常を降参自ら法に消し立てまつるまさに願わくは主情と共に深く教蔵に入りて知恵海のごとくならん自らそうに消し立てまつるまさに願わくは主情と共に大衆を通りして一切無限ならん。無常人人未明の方は約千万語にも合うことかたし、俺今検問し受事することを得たり、願わくは如来の真実義を下し立てまつらん。何万ダブス、何万ダブス、何万ダブス、何万ダブス、何万ダブス。Thank you very much, everyone. Once again, good morning. Today, as I mentioned, we are observing the August Shotsuki Hoyo here in Salinas. And I hope that many of you are tuning in to observe today's memorial service. A few weeks ago, I had come across some family history of mine. And I was fortunate enough to find a picture of my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, who died when I was very young. And so all of my memories of him were of an elderly gentleman who was late in his years. And he died, as I mentioned, very young, when I was very young. But I came across a picture of him that was taken by the FBI when he was arrested right after Pearl Harbor. And this picture is of a young man in his 40s, 30s and 40s, somewhere around there. And when I looked at the picture, it was like looking in a mirror. I had no idea how much my grandfather looked like me, or I looked like him. And so, as I was thinking about this, it reminded me of a very famous sutra called the Avatamsaka Sutra. And that sutra has a section in it that talks about the interrelationship of beings and how for generations and generations and beyond our capacity to understand how much we're connected with our past. So I want to share this portion of the Avatamsaka Sutra with you this morning. Far away in the heavenly abode of the great god Indra, there is a wonderful net which has been hung by some cunning artificer in such a manner that it stretches out indefinitely in all directions, in accordance with the extravagant tastes of the deities. The maker has hung a single glittering jewel at the net's every intersection. And since the net itself is infinite in dimensions, the jewels are infinite in number. There hang the jewels, glittering like stars of the first magnitude. A wonderful sight to behold. If we now arbitrarily select one of these jewels for inspection and look closely at it, we will discover that in its polished surface there are reflected all the other jewels of the net, infinite in number. Not only that, but each of the jewels reflected in this one jewel is also reflecting all the other jewels, so that the process of reflection is infinite. End quote. Again, this comes from the Avatamsaka Sutra. It's called the Jewel Net of Indra. So as we observe this August Shotsuki Hoyo, this short little section of the sutra is important because it talks about our connection to each other, our connection to other beings, and how our lives reflect the lives of others, and their lives reflect ours as well. So as we observe this memorial here in Salinas, we think back about our family members, whether it's your mother, your father, or your brother or sister, or even friends and acquaintances here in Salinas. And as we reflect back on their lives, so much time has passed. Since the last August Shotsuki, a whole year has gone by, and in that last year, so much has occurred. We find ourselves now having to wear masks, having to sit apart from each other, distancing each other, not going out as much as we used to. And so much has happened. But also, there were babies born. There were marriages that occurred. And yes, there were deaths as well. So, because of this picture of my grandfather, I began to think about connections with family. I began to think about parenthood and what our parents have done for us and how much they cared for us. So if we reflect back, I don't know, we can't remember our very early birth, but if we think about the nurturing that our parents did for us and how much love and care they did for us, it's what we are living now and how we are living now is a direct result of their nurturing and their care. So we cannot help today but think about this deep connection to our past and their connection to all those names that were scrolled on today's Shotsuki quote. And in truth, not just our looks, but the very blood that flows through our bodies is given to us by our parents, is shared with our great-grandparents and grandparents, and all others in our family. We are the recipients of this gift of life, this blood that flows through us, generation after generation. And we should always remember and be thankful for the nurturing that our parents gave us. When we were born, our parents nursed us, they clothed us, they bathed us, they fed us, they protected us. And as we got older, they made sure that we studied hard, that we worked hard, that we were polite, that we were kind to others. All of these things are things that our parents taught us. And they probably scolded us at times too, when we made mistakes. But at some point, I like to believe that they relaxed. And they had a sense of peace of mind knowing that you become an adult and that you are okay. However, a parent's job never ends. They will always be concerned about you. Even after they're gone, their concern is for you. As Buddhas, they are concerned for you. So the same nurturing, the same care that's extended to you from your family, you also extend outward to others. You extend it to your children, your family, your friends, your community. And just like the blood that flows through you, that is the gift of life from our parents. The hopes and dreams and nurture they bestowed upon us flows through each and every one of us. I grew up in Mountain View, and I know some of the Salinas folks have roots in Mountain View from the early years of nursery industry there. Now on my street, there were two large chrysanthemum growers. At the end of the street was a man by the name of Mr. Henslot. And Mr. Henslot had I don't know what he did, but he had this huge property. And as kids, we used to have to walk through literally his yard to get to the swimming pools and the markets that were on the other side of town. So we cut through his yard every day. And he was fine with that. But also, in his yard was this huge, huge oak tree. This oak tree was massive. And so on Saturdays or Sundays when we had beautiful weather, we would climb this oak tree. And Mr. Henslot was fine with all of these kids climbing in his tree. We built a tree house, we built a swing, and we would just hang out in this tree. Well, at some point, this tree was cut down to make way for development on Mr. Henslot's land. And it was sad for us kids because we loved that tree so much. We loved to climb in it, play in it. But Mr. Henslot had a son who was very talented. And as we walked by his house, he would be cutting pieces of this large oak tree. And he would, one day we saw he had made a table. The next day we saw he had made a chair. Another day he made a bench. Another day he was making bowls. And so out of this huge oak tree, he was using all that great wood to make furniture and bowls and things like this. So as I reflect back on that oak tree, I think about how old it was, hundreds of years old, and probably Native Americans used it as shade, took the acorns and used it. And then later, as children, we used it to play. But then after the life of the tree was gone, it became tables, chairs, benches, and bowls that continued the life of that great oak tree. Fed people. People ate on it. People gathered around it. So it continued on in another form. It continued to give life. It continued to nurture as well. So our loved ones, they nurtured our lives. And in return, we nurture other lives. And on and on. And so this sutra of Indra's net describes this connection for generations and generations and generations. Their life continues to flow through each and every one of us. Long after they're gone. Long after they're not even a part of our memory. They're still part of you and I. So on days like this when we gather to memorialize our family members, we cannot help but feel grateful for the life that we've been given. And so a memorial is not just about the names that are scrolled on a screen, but it's about you and I expressing our gratitude and living our life fully, because we're not just living it for ourselves, we're living it for them as well. So I hope that you will all today take a moment to put your hands together in Gasho and say thank you to your family members. And as we do that, I also want to remind us, that this Indra's net, it reminds us of the connections that we're not able to see. Any life lost is a loss for us. So the lives of 75 years ago in Hiroshima and Nagasaki directly affect us. Not just because many of us are Japanese and Japanese Americans, but because we're human beings who have hopes and dreams. And so we memorialize those folks who died as a result of the bombs 75 years ago as well today. So with that, I'd like to once again ask you to join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo invite our minister's assistant, Mr. Nick San Juan, who will share with us one of the letters of Rennyo Shonin, Gomunsho. And that Gomunsho can be found on page 140 of the large book service book. This Gomunsho is one of the more popular ones written by Rennyo. It's called the chapter on teaching of Shinran Shonin, Shonin Ichiryu no Sho.
The chapter of the teaching of Shinran Shonin. Shinran Shonin taught that the essence of Jodo Shinshu is Shinjin. The reason is that by abandoning all other practices and completely entrusting ourselves in the Mida Buddha, our spiritual rebirth is assured by Mida through the inconceivable power of the primal vow. This is known as entering the ranks of the truly assured at the very moment of Shinjin. Thereafter, all utterances of the Nenbutsu should be understood as only expressions of gratitude for Amida's assurance of our spiritual rebirth. With reverence, I remain.
Namaste. Shonin ichiryu no gokanke no nomuki wa shinji no motte hunto serare soro. Sono iue wa moro no zogi o nagesutete isshin ni Mida ni kime o surebo. Ugashigi no ganriki to shite bun no kata yori ojo wa jijo seshimeta mo. Sono kurai yo 一年大き入少女始終とも釈し、その上の称名年部と如来我が往生を定めたまいし、本法人の年部と心べきなり、あらかしこ、あらかしこ、なんまんだうす、なんまんだうす、なんまんだうす。Thank you. And now, please join us in Naka Ondoku-san 2, the large purple service book. You can find Ondoku-san 2 on page 220. Thank you very much, everyone. And now I'd like to invite the Salinas Buddhist Temple President, Mr. Yamashita, for a few announcements.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending the service. Hopefully you were watching live. But if you aren't watching live, watching later will be fine too. I'd like to thank Carol Cisnero and Tsugu Kuramura for the Osanai today. And I'd like to announce that our next Shotsuki is scheduled for September 27th. So it will be probably live cast again. It would be nice if we could have a regular service, but the way things look right now, it doesn't look all that possible. I want to add one comment on Sensei's sermon. Perhaps not too many people know that Rennyo Shonin have 5 wives. 4 of them died, while he was alive. And between these 5 wives, he had 13 boys and 14 girls. So he was quite busy. But if you look back how long this was, he died in 1499 at the age of 85. You go back that far, you find out that you're related to everybody. So you probably have some relative that can trace his roots to Rennyo Shonin directly. So it's something to think about. Anyway. So with that, I'd like to conclude. Thank you very much, and we'll do this again.
Thank you very much, Tom. Now I'd like to invite up to our podium here, Minister's Assistant, Mr. Bill Wittenberg, for a closing reading.
Please join me in Gasho. In life you realize there's a role for everyone you meet. Some will test you, some will use you, some will love you, and some will teach you. But the ones who are truly important are the ones who bring out the best in you. They are the rare and amazing people who remind you why it's worth it. Namo Amidos. Namo Amidos. Namo Amidos.
Thank you very much, Bill. This will conclude our August Shotsuki Hoyo service here in Salinas. Before we close, I'd like to thank Mr. Tom Yamashita and Ms. Mariko Yamashita for their assistance in making today's live streaming service possible. And I'd like to also thank Mr. Nick San Juan and Mr. Bill Wittenberg, our minister's assistants, for being here today and supporting this service today. Thank you very much. Please be safe. Don't forget to wear your masks and social distancing. Okay? So thank you very much.